In 13th century Magdeburg, Germany, a girl born with a severe physical disability was abandoned by many, yet she became one of the most revered recluses of her time. This is Margaret the Lame, deformity, devotion, and power in a small cell.
Born different. Real stories.
Margaret the Lame of Magdeburg, Latin Margaretae Contractae, lived roughly from 1210 to sometime after 1245. Born into a reasonably well-off family in Magdeburg, she was deformed from early childhood. The Vita Margaretae Contractae, written in Latin by Friar Johannes of Magdeburg, her confessor, describes that she was disabled. The nature of her deformity isn't specified clearly, but from childhood she was mocked and shunned. Despite her physical condition, Margaret found strength in her faith. At age 12, she chose to become an Anchoress, a recluse who lives in a small cell, separated from society, dedicated to prayer and devotion. Her mother arranged for her to be enclosed in an anchor hold at St. Albans Church, near the cathedral in Magdeburg. There she lived with only two small windows, one looking to the altar so she could take part in worship, the other to the outside for visitors to speak to her. She was known for spiritual visions, austerity, fasting, self-denial, and a belief that physical suffering brought her closer to God. Her confessor Johannes recorded that she saw her suffering as a gift, mockery as a chance to humble herself, and found in religious devotion her identity beyond her physical state. Medieval records don't specify what condition Margaret had. The Latin vita uses terms like contracta, the bent, the lame, indicating disability but not giving modern clinical details. Today, we can only hypothesize. Perhaps she had a congenital deformity such as arthrogryposis, or joint contractures, or polio, or some other paralysis, or skeletal deformity causing her to be lame, unable to walk normally. Whatever the exact condition, the suffering and physical limitations she lived with were real and chronic. And in the medieval context, with no modern medicine, such disabilities were often accompanied by pain, risk of infection, malnutrition, and social exclusion. Margaret's life as an anchoress was austere. Living in her small cell, she devoted herself entirely to prayer, fasting, self-denial, and spiritual counsel. People came to her cell to seek her counsel, to confess sins, to receive spiritual comfort. Her cell became a place of pilgrimage of a sort. Her spiritual teachings were recorded by Johannes, who noted her visions and her sense of mission. Because her Vita was written while she was alive, Margaret had some role in shaping how she was represented. She didn't seek worldly honors. Instead, she embraced her disability, seeing it as part of her divine purpose. The Vita emphasizes that physical deformity was not a barrier to holiness, but in some eyes, a mark of sanctity. Her disability, however, did bring hardship, mockery from passers-by. For example, people allegedly cried out, "Look at that, the lame leading the blind," when she walked with a blind servant in early childhood. Spiritual and physical suffering, extreme dietary asceticism, and confinement. Yet she persisted. Her integrity made her a spiritual authority. Margaret died sometime after 1245, likely in her 30s or 40s. Her Vita offers no exact date of death, but her legacy persists. Scholars studying medieval mysticism and women's religious roles often point to her as an example of how disability, asceticism, and spiritual authority intersected in the Middle Ages. Margaret the Lame was not a myth or legend, she was real. Her body was limited, but her spirit transcended mockery and isolation. In her cell, she became more than the lame. She became a voice, a mentor, a saint in the making. Born different, Real Stories remembers Margaret to remind us that holiness, power, and purpose often arise where society least expects them.